Okay, I'm in virtual desktop again, looking at just current project. So I've got a RTX 4090, and I started running local models. So I've got Olama installed, and I tried out a couple different models. The ones I'm using right now are Quinn 2.5 quantized version by Manix, and then a smaller 1.5 for I'm mainly using this for chat, and then I'm using a 1.5 for autocomplete in VS Code. See if the other ones are in here. I tried the non-quantized version of 32B, and it was too big for my 24 gigs of VRAM in the 4090. Um, at least with the autocomplete I had in there, or also maybe my context window. But I'll show you that when in command prompt, you can run, actually this is this is PowerShell. You can run NVIDIA SMI, and SMI is system management interface, I think. But it's showing my GPU usage. So like right now I've got both models loaded in VRAM. So 24 total VRAM, and it's using 21 with them both loaded at the same time. Show the other apps, nothing's using GPU. I think when I don't have the AI models loaded, I average about maybe like 1 gig in here. And then this is Olama PS. Process status, I think, is the PS. And this is what I was looking for, is to find, I had to mess around. Like when I was trying the different models, I was trying to find ones that would fit. So uh, this is showing that both are loaded at the same time. I ran this earlier. I think the autocomplete's probably kicked out by now. See, it's only in for 4 minutes. But when they're both in, that's where I get my 21 uh, gigabytes used. Uh, when I was using the non-quantized version of Quinn 32, and I had, I think, a larger autocomplete at the same time, I was getting either loading and unloading. So if I was doing autocomplete, this one would get kicked out. The 32 would get, the chat would get kicked out, the larger one. And then when I went back to chat, the autocomplete would get kicked out. And then I tried even larger ones, and larger ones would spilled over out of my VRAM. So instead of showing 100% GPU, one of them had like a larger node processing, was showing that I had like 70% GPU, 30% CPU. So I have 24 VRAM in my GPU, but 32 gigs just normal RAM for my CPU. And what was happening is Olama was splitting it based on availability. So the GPU was maxed out, and then the overflow was going over into my CPU, into just my normal system RAM. So then with that, I've got VS Code. So I started a little project, game lister. So this is where it comes over to my ROM collection. So from the previous videos, I was merging some large ROM collections and just trying to figure out how to deal with them. Right, it's just a lot of files. I wasn't going to use their setup. I just wanted the ROMs, and I'll set it up all myself. When I trust the installs more, and I can get rid of anything that seems less trustworthy. But I've got mine split right now. Emulation, this is mainly just consoles and ROMs that are data only. Then I have a pinball split out, mainly because I like pinball and I want to set up something better for Xarcade 2 TV. And then the other one I have is PC 2D. And so this is also the ROMs, but they're mainly like executables and a bunch of other stuff that's less trustworthy, like TechnoParrot and Mugen or Mugen, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, and delisted PC games. So that's in here where I can scan it more heavily for viruses and such. And I've cleaned it more aggressively than just the data files. But it's gotten a little bit larger. The other one I found was I like the one build. This one is interesting because, well, I started using Retrobat. I liked it quite a bit for the simplicity. Also for, it works great with the game lists. So it's not trying to read all of the file systems all the time. So in the Retrobat GUI, I can go to supports a ton of systems. I can select my system. I can point it to my mapped network drive. So it'll map to 30, 3DS, and then it's going to read a gamelist.xml. So it's not going to have to scan all the media, and it's going to not have to scan all the ROM. So it's got a quick, it starts up quick, and it doesn't just hammer my NAS. Initially, when I was setting it up without using the game list, it was just really slow. Just trying to read. I mean, it's just too much, right? Like this is just unmanageable. So that's part of the reason for the app that I'm showing you in a little bit. But for Retrobat, this thing's interesting because I think part of its tenet was that they try to give you some minimal set of torrents of just the best stuff. I mean ROMs for every system. So it filled out a lot of systems that I didn't have from even the 12 or 14 terabyte hard disk drives, retro hard disk drives. So it just filled in a lot of the gaps. I would say out of, well, I don't have all of them actually in Retrobat yet. I maybe have like 80% of the systems, I would say. I probably have another 10% of the systems. I just don't have a game list for them yet. And then the other 10% I just don't have anything for. That's not saying that like for every system I have all of the ROMs mapped. Right now I'm trying to figure out, I'm working on the game list right now so that more ROMs that are actually available will start showing up in Retrobat. And I'm doing a non-intuitive way. We'll talk about it. The thing that I was doing is still just figuring out what I wanted the file system to be. So I have the main split between emulation, mainly just safe data ROMs, PC, untrusted, and pinball. That's what I currently got. I may divvy this up further the way like a Retrobat documentation has, where they have like vintage computers and vintage modern consoles versus vintage retro consoles. They've got them kind of split between that. So there's different ways of splitting this up further, and I may do that because like this emulation for systems got 231 items. Granted, that's bloated because I'm doing this stash H for representing either hack or homebrew. So I've got a number of those where I'm keeping them separate from the main collection. And then none of those are mapped in yet because I'd have to create custom configs for Retrobat. But I'm keeping them separate now and just can mess with those later. So then I guess, well, let me go into now. So what I have been doing is for the systems is I'm going to rely heavily on the gamelist XML. And I've just been collecting these per systems where I get them from. So like one of these was from like one of the hard drives. This was from the one build. I think some of these actually showed up as like there'd be multiples in the hard drive. So these probably came from the hard drive as well. You can see they're all different sizes, so they're different scrapes, but um, I'm using these as like well, let's just ignore these for now. And the system info is from Emulation Station. These are, uh, tell you a little bit more about the system. It's nice that they've got these supported file extensions. So I use this as a reference. So I've been keeping these. And then if I have like extra notes or scripts that I've run to process it, I keep that in here. So this is my per system. I've got ROMs and I've got media. And so this was different from the retro hard drives. They would have a ROMs directory, but they would also have the media. They wouldn't have a media folder. All of these would also be at the root. So what I'm doing is I'm switching. I took all of those from the ROMs and I pushed them into media. I also cleaned these up quite a bit to get some more standardization. I had grabbed I had iterated through every directory and figured out like what all the non-ROMs directory names were to see what like the most popular ones were, and at least out of the ones that where I'd gotten stuff from. And these are the ones that like some of the ones that shown up. I think that's no, that's the file types. I don't think I have that list in here, but I had no. Where is it? Oh, I think I've got it as an enum. That would be in read. No, that'd be in models. Media. So media category. These equate to the most popular directories. I wish I had a comment of the actual counts. I know I have a text document somewhere that's actually got that. I'm not going to go look for that now. But I had run another one that had like every directory that showed up. I wish I had kept that, but I lost that data because I started pushing all of the directories to the ones that were in the most used, basically these. And then for ROMs, I wanted a ROMs folder because you might have nested folders in there. I've kind of got it to where it's either split by region or some of them are split by geographic location too, or some of them are just folders where multiple files are in there, like the bin and the queue that go together. So I've been, I I wish every ROM was just one individual file, but they're not. Some of them make sense as in like folders, like in ScumVM and stuff like that. So that's why I was like, well, I want to have a ROMs to keep it. Like I want media to keep all the media together and ROMs to keep all the ROM stuff together because they're all not just nice clean lists of individual files. And I also wanted the game list and other stuff to be here, and then also wanted to be able to break out notes and keep them with the system. So this is my structure that I'm going. But when I moved everything around and I've been merging this stuff together, the game lists from the retro hard drives or the one build, they just became irrelevant because all of them, I mean, they're, let's see, this one, they're made to be portable. So they've all got relative paths for like the ROMs and also the images, but like screenshot, I don't know if I even kept that directory around. I might have moved that to something else like images. Wheel might have became marquee or marquee became wheel, stuff like that. So I basically was breaking all of these or a number of them. I think box art is definitely still around. I do think wheel is still around and video is still around. But depending on which game list, I was definitely breaking those things. Well, this is definitely broken because it doesn't have the media directory in there. but I still found keeping these around as valuable. So I'll show you what you're supposed to do is you're just supposed to create this from scratch using some app like Scraper. So if I'm on 3DO, this is about the system. It has this list of relevant ROM files. You need a screen scraper account. That's where you'll download the images and the videos from, and also the metadata. This is how you can specify what you want the game list file that gets created, or depending on which wizard you chose from the start. I chose my wizard when I chose it specifically so I could get a game list out of it. Metadata is what goes into the game list. So like this sort of stuff, release date, developer, publisher. So that's what you want. And then for media, you can specify like it defaults to a mix and 3D art, but you can choose videos and different setups in here. But then this is where it's got to go out to Screen Scraper to pull these down. And for a large collection, that's just going to take forever. So I didn't want to do that since I basically already have some media and I already have the ROMs. It's just a matter of putting them back together. So let's close this out. So what I've got now is this app. It may have unloaded right now, but this is what I was setting up the local AI for it to help with. But we'll show it. I think it's already out unloaded out of memory, so now that it's loaded back in, but this is it, pretty fast. It's in chat mode. I think when I was measuring the tokens in a different program, I was getting about like with the autocomplete, I was getting like 100 tokens, right? It's smaller, or close to 100 with the 4090. This one, I'm getting about 40, I think, in the quantized. For the non-quantized, I was getting maybe a little bit faster. Well, the non-quantized that fit in memory. I think quantized slowed it down a little bit. But I'm getting 40 to 50 tokens, so it's fast. It's faster than I can think, right? Or can read. I didn't use it for planning. This one says it's not recommended for planning, but I mean, I had the plan. Like I know what the problems are, and then I know how to solve problems. Then there's the agent stuff. So I did try the agent stuff. It does run, but it's at least this model is not like they say they don't recommend it for agentic stuff. I guess here though I should point out that I'm using continue.dev to run them right now. I think VS Code has been updated to where you can manage models from with like it's been up. I don't know if it's in the main branch yet, but you can manage models up here. And then I think I'd only set up continue to do autocomplete. I don't have that right now, but that's what I've got here. I've got the continue.dev extension. That's what I'm using it. So we can show it's here. Yeah, so my config, I've got Quinn 2.5 32B quantize for chat, edit, apply, and summarize. 16K context length. I think 32 was, I could try it. It may push me over my edge of overflowing my VRAM. But this is enough for this. And then the autocomplete model, just smaller context length. And it's, yeah, so autocomplete. And I'm using it in chat mode, and I'm just kind of going through. Let's see if it actually explains how this works. Well, I'm going to go ahead and explain it. I'm not going to read. So the thing I've got is, well, I've got ROMs. Like I know that I can figure out the systems. I've got ROMs and I've got media. I just got to marry those together. And then for now, the ones that I have existing game lists from, I can use those to cheat. And this is the non-intuitive part. So I give it all the all the directories that have systems in them. And then I have a systems reader, and it's basically going into each of the subfolders. So it's reading at this level, it's reading to see which ones actually have game lists right now, or media and ROMs to know that it's a system. Uh, so that's what this one's doing. And then for every system, I've got multiple calls to hydrate. So first I say game list. So it reads in, right now it depends on there being an existing, at least one existing game list. So it reads that game list. If not, it kicks out. Uh, then it will go in and it'll read the ROMs. So I'll go in the ROMs, and if they're nice like this, it's fine. If it's like a delisted PC game that's got a folder and stuff, it becomes just a ton of different stuff. So you can see that from uh, yeah. So this is like if I read all the different file types as I parse the entire collection, it's just an endless amount of different file extensions. And so this is, I'm like halfway through. It's just every file extension you could ever think of. So that's not going to work. What I'll have to, so trying to read the ROMs and then figure out what's out of these files, figure out which one is actually a ROM file. This that failed. So what I would have to do instead, and I'll do on a later pass, is I need to, for a system, I need to know what the extensions are that are valid for that. So if I'm in a ROMs directory, well, first, when I read the systems, I'll have to read like a system config file, like from this. And scrapers, got I think a JSON file. So I could read that JSON file. Retrobat is built on, we can see it here in Retrobat. They've got it here. I'm pretty sure this is reading a emulation station config file that has this info. I don't know if Retrobat has their own, but again, this is another one where I could, the same config file this one's using, I could read that. Or is there another one? ARRM, I think it's got one. This here, maybe I could read this file. See, it's got supported file extensions. So I've got a number of ways that I can look for what file system what file extension to look for in the ROMs directory. I'm not doing that yet. So that's what I would do for the ones that don't have a game list. I would look for the ROMs and then map them to media, and I could generate a game list from scratch. Alternatively, I could still use Scraper and only have it, do the metadata for a system where it do the matching, and then I just would not have it do the media because that's what would take forever. So I'd say, give me a game list, just the metadata, and looking at the ROM identification and getting the metadata, and that would be fast. I could do all the systems, and then after that, I'd be able to just read all the media and then try to do matching based off of the metadata in the game, seeding game list, and pull it in. Alternately, for the ones I don't have, I could just run scraper proper, but that's what I'm trying to avoid that right now. To just be efficient. So let's go back. At this point, I've read the game list and the ROMs, and now I want to actually find. I've got the mess with all the file extensions. This is, the reading the ROMs is just too much. So instead, I do the inverse. for a ROMs finder. What it does is it looks at all the existing game lists. They all have a ROMs path. So it'll say, hey, I've got this ROM here. Well, it'll look to see if I've actually got that matching ROM in the ROMs directory. So it knows then that that is a valid ROM. Right now, if it doesn't have a listing in game list and it's in the ROMs directory, like these have a 3DS, like so these may not get picked. These probably wouldn't be picked up because they're unlikely to be in that if that game list had 7Z and the other one didn't. But if another game list had 3DS, these would get picked up by that game list because it's looking for the ROMs in every game list and then mapping it to the files that are available. So that at that point, I've got a list of proposed games that are basically a ROM and one or more game entries from the game list. Let's look more at the game list now. These are all a little bit different. There's no spec of this. They're all kind of basically the same, where they might have a provider. They will have a game entry. They might have a folders in entry. ScumVM had that. This sort of thing is the images might be named differently, but I do have good data for this. That's in the game list markdown. So I read every single element out of every game list XML that I had. And so like name, well, path has to be there. Path is the path to the ROM. I don't have it represented in here, but path would be number one. Then you'd have a name for the name without the, it wouldn't be a path, it'd be the name of the actual ROM. Images, thumbnail, marquee, publisher, so these sort of things. And then towards the bottom, you still have command extra, mode, kit game, core, emulator. These show up very infrequently, but that's to the point of there's no real standard, but I wanted to know what the most relevant ones were. And when I had this, I first had the AI going through and parse everything out, and then I could create models based off of that. So that's the game list using C#. XML serialization, so game list. So I had like 240 providers, 128 folders. This is the different provider stuff. So it was very choppy. One of them shows up as capital system, one is as lowercase. I don't know how to get these mixed. I would need to look at. I don't care. I think there's only one of these with a capital, but I'm sure I could clean this up to both of them would deserialize in the same. Some of them have a scrap or multiple scrap entries to say where they were scraped from. This is the folder that sometimes it's the same, a child or a sibling of the game entry. And the main one is the game entry. Some of them have an ID attribute. I'm not deserializing that right now. Path is the main one. Name, image, and these are the same, elements that we just looked at. I just kind of I've got them basically all except for some of the most infrequently used ones. So this is what lets me deserialize every game list. But then I have my proposed game with ROM paths or games. If I end up with multiple ROM paths, I just do string matching to figure out which is the actual closest. So in some of them, the file name of the ROM is the same, but the relative path is not at the ROMs directory. So it may be like ROMs Sonic1 foo.bin, and then the next one would be Sonic2 slash foo.bin. So the actual file ROM itself is identical, but if you look at the preceding parent directory, that's where you can differentiate between those two. So that's what I end up with multiple matches, and I just do string recognition to get them the closest match. That's been working. And then I may have multiple game entries, and then I would have multiple game entries because, well, I mean, this one's the worst because this is one where I've scraped it myself, but you can see that I had it in the hard drive. I had somebody had done it with ARM. I think I did it with Scraper, and then one build also had it. So everybody's done some level of 3DO system. So this is the worst, where I read all of them, and so I may have some duplicate game entries because it's picking it up from different game lists. Back. So that's the weird part right now. I'll ultimately fix that. That's what this to do is, where I can say, well, if I don't have any seeding game list, and then once I can figure out what the valid extensions are to look for our system, I can still read all those ROMs and try to map them up to the media. I just wouldn't have the metadata because I have to have a game list to get the metadata from like release date and publisher. I've got no other way to pull that. Next step is, once I've got the proposed games, I process them to clean them up a little bit better. And then I go through finding their metadata. And so that's where if I've got a system that's been scraped multiple times, I think right now it favors the whichever one is the largest game list, and it starts going down the list, assuming the larger's got the better metadata. What's that look like? So like it's got the path, it's got to figure out, the path of its two relative, finding the path to the ROM itself. For name, I'm just getting the longest string as the most descriptive. I could do another one basically like to compare, like, because I'm looking at this, it's this G to G name. This is the games. So it's the different game entries. So like I could have 4 game entries, and it's taking those 4 game entries and then choosing the longest name. I could ultimately change this to where it's like saying, well, if they all match on name, or if 2 of them match on name, choose that as the name. Like see which ones agree if they've got multiple. But for now, I'm just saying the longest on a lot of these to say, give me the most detail. For media files, it's got another one for resolve media path. So it's looking at all the relative images, which I've broken because I've added in the media directory. And it's basically saying like, well, can I insert the media path and then figure out, that I do have this media path. And I'll point the new entry to the new path that's been changed. And it's just doing this for all the different possible entries in the game entry. And the last pass is to render it. So it renders a new game list. So creates a backup and then creates a new clean one. So this would have been a one that it created. So let's look at 3DS. So it's got the path to the ROMs. It's got the thumbnail, the marquee, and now they've included the media because I was able to look them up to see which one existed. One of them had a sort name in it. This one that had this additional whatever count for whatever reason, it was the longest. So sort name I might get rid of you know, not do this based off of longest. I may change this to something else because I don't really care about this number being used to sort it. I guess maybe that's the number of release or something, but these have it, but I'm not that interested in it. Language, play count, last played time, game time. So like last played, I've never played it, so at one point I need to wipe these out and start from scratch on last played if I want to really take that into account. And I've never played this, so like that counts from somebody else playing it. But for right now, for these where it's an integer, it's like it's usually looking for like a non-zero integer if it's available. Otherwise, it gets rid of it. There's a rank in some of them too. But on this one, it's just, yep, it grabbed from these other existing game lists. It found the media that I already had, and then brought over the metadata as well. And so to process all of these at this simplest stage takes like 5 minutes. It's fast, and that's what I wanted. The other reason I wanted it is if I don't, like at some point I don't want to have the media over here and I want to copy it to my PC instead of on my NAS, I would use this tool to basically do that and say, bring that all over, and now the gamelist.xml, instead of pointing, could be hosted on my PC, and it would point to all the local media on my PC and still point to the ROM on my NAS. So it gives me flexibility like that I can just divvy this up really quick if I want without having to re-scrape every single time. That's what I'm looking for. But there's a lot more I can do. Like this is another part where I'm not even reading in the media yet. Right now I'm only using the media that was already in the game system. So basically I'm only using the ROMs in the existing game list. I'm only using the media in the existing game list. The next step I would do is, well, I've got a ROM and the media couldn't be mapped from the game list. I can then do a follow-up step that basically maps from actual media, tries to match based off of file name. To say, well, if I don't have a video, I might actually have a video. If I didn't have a video in the game list, I might actually have a video already. I'll go look at my media directory to see if I have a video, and then I'll write that into the metadata. That's what this step would be. I probably won't do that until I'm actually doing this one where I found ROMs already that don't exist in the game list and bring those in, and then this will be more important at that point. So let's look at the result. So now I've got a lot more systems loaded up. I definitely don't have all the ROMs in it. So like this one is just missing card art. So this is one where I could like, maybe I do have cartridge art though in the, or some images art that I probably have it in the media directory. And so that step that I ultimately will say, get the media directory, that's where I could get something here. I am getting the media though over here from the box art, I think was what that would be. And this one, it does have images, it's got videos, it's got the box art over there, it's got the description as well. And then the ROM would be mapped. So basically everything's got entries now. So it's done pretty good mapping stuff over. And it's just fast. And then I can just do another pass for the other ones, but I'll probably do the next step of just now working with the file systems without a game list. And then the third step would be, well, I have the local AI. And for the stuff that's not that I'm fuzzy on for just working with file-based matching. I can make it actually. I can work in the local AI at that point. That's the other reason I wanted to bring in the local AI is I'm going to be as efficient as possible, but at some point I want to say, well, you know, try harder, and that's when I'll use my local AI to just handle this unwieldy, uh, set. Right? It's just too much. It's just too much to handle manually. So I want to automate it. But that's it.